Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Miss Iin as our lecturer, and we are from Group 6, such as me, Ira Carmelita Naibaho, and my friends, Ira Peritiwi and Issac Ramadhan. Today, we will present about the nature of qualitative research. Okay, let's go to the topic. Okay, the first topic, what is qualitative research? Qualitative research is research studies that investigate the quality of relationship, activities, situation, or materials. This type of discuss about describing in detail all of what goes in a particular activity or situation rather than on comparing the effect of a particular treatment, as in experimental research, say, or describing the attitudes or behavior of people, as in survey research. There are some actual examples of the kinds of qualitative studies that have been conducted by educational researchers are as follows. First is sources of middle school students' self-efficiency in mathematics, and then shopping malls, measuring interpersonal distance under changing conditions and across cultures, and then a framework for understanding teaching with the internet. Okay, next. General characteristic of qualitative research. Bogdan and Bicklin describe 5 such feature different types of qualitative methodologies. The first is the natural setting. This is the direct source of the data, and the researcher is the key instrument in a qualitative research. Qualitative researchers go directly to the particular setting of interest to observe and collect their data. Okay, number 2, qualitative data are collected in the form of words or picture rather than numbers. The kinds of data collected in qualitative research include interview, transcript, field notes, photograph, audio, recording, video tapes, and etc. And then the third, qualitative researchers are concerned with process as well as product. Qualitative researchers are especially interested in how things occur, hence, they are likely to observe how people interact with each other. Okay, next, qualitative researchers tend to analyze their data inductively. As Bogdan and Bicklin suggest, qualitative researchers are not putting together a puzzle whose picture they already know. They are constructing a picture that takes shape as they collect and examine the parts. Okay, the last. How people make sense out of their lives is a major concern to qualitative researchers. Qualitative researchers want to know what the participants in a study are thinking and why they think what they do. Okay, the next topic, philosophical assumption underlying qualitative as opposed to quantitative research. These assumptions are related to the views they hold concerning the nature of reality, the relationship of the researcher to that which he or she is studying, the role of values in a study, and the process of research itself. Qualitative researchers posit that one's worldview influences the theoretical framework or theoretical approach that is used to structure a research study. And then quantitative approach is associated with the philosophy of positive, which emerged in the 19th century. Perhaps the person most responsible for the development and spread of this philosophy was Auguste Comte. Okay, the next topic, postmodernism. Postmodernism offers a number of critiques of traditional research, such as the first, they deny the existence of underlying structure in the domain of social behavior. In fact, argue that all knowledge and truth are product of history, power, and social interest, and hence cannot be discovered as positivists. For example, belief. The second, they argue that all naturally occurring language are inevitably made up of ambiguous terms that change over time. And postmodernism has an impact on all intellectual disciplines, including an increasing discussion of its implication for educational research. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you for your attention and go to the next presenter.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Issac Ramadhan, and now I want to continue our presentation material. So the next material is steps in qualitative research. The steps involved in conducting in qualitative research are not as distinct as they are in quantitative studies. They aren't even necessarily sequential, and there are several steps can be identified. So the first one is identification of the phenomenon to be studied. Before any study can begin, the researcher must identify the particular phenomenon he or she is interested in investigating. And the second is identification of the participant in the study. The participant in the study constitute the sample of individuals who will be observed. For example, interview. In other words, the subject of the study. And number three is generation of hypotheses. Hypotheses are not usually stated at the beginning of a study, as they are in most quantitative studies. And then data collection. There is no treatment in a qualitative study, nor is there any manipulation of subject. The participants in qualitative study are not divided into groups, with one group being exposed to a treatment of some sort and the effects of this treatment then measured in some way. And then number 5 is data analysis. Analyzing the data in qualitative study essentially involves analyzing, synthesizing, and reducing the information of the researcher obtained from various sources. For example, observation, interview, and document into a coherent description of what he or she has observed or otherwise discovered. And the last is interpretation and conclusion. In qualitative research, interpretations are made continuously throughout the course of a study. Okay, we go to the next material. So the next material is approaches to qualitative research. Creswell, for example, has identified 5, including narrative research, phenomenology, grounded theory, case studies, and ethnography. So, start from narrative research. Narrative research is the study of the life experience of an individual as told to the researcher or found in document and archival material. And in narrative research is not easily to do for a number of reasons. So the first one is the researcher must collect an extensive amount of information about his or her participant. So the second is the researcher must have a clear understanding of the historical period within which the participant live in order to position the participant accurately within that period. And the third is the researcher needs a sharp eye to uncover the various aspects of the participant's life. And the last is the researcher needs to be reflective about his or her own personal and political background, which may shape how the participant's story is told and understood. Okay, and then phenomenology. A researcher undertaking a phenomenological study investigates various reaction to in various reaction to or perception of a particular phenomenon. For example, the experience of teacher in an inner city high school. The researcher hopes to gain some to insight into the world of his or her participant and to describe their perception and reaction. For example, is what it is like to teach in an inner city high school. And then there are grounded theory. In grounded theory study, the researcher intends to generate a theory that is grounded in data from participants who have experienced the process. This is stated as Strauss and Corbin in 1998. And researchers doing a grounded theory study use what is called the constant comparative method. There is continual interplay between the researcher, his or her data, and the theory that is being developed. Okay, and then case studies. The study of cases has been around for some time. Students in medicine law, business, and the social science often study cases as part of their training. What case study researchers have in common is that they call the object of their research cases, and uh, they focus their research on the study of such cases. The case studies of Page and Vygotsky, for example, have contributed much to our understanding of cognitive and moral development. There are interesting case study, case study, and multiple or collective case study. And then ethnographic and historical research. Ethnographic research focuses on the study of culture. Historical research concentrates exclusively on the past. And then in sampling in qualitative research, at least there are 9 types of purposive sampling have been identified. These include typical sample, critical sample, homogeneous sample, extreme case sample, theoretical sample, opportunistic sample, confirming sample, maximal variation sample, and the last is noble sample. Okay, I think that's all. And the next presentation will be explained by Ira Peritiwi.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ira Peritiwi, and I will continue explain about the qualitative data analysis. Okay, the data analysis in qualitative research is an iterative and continuous comparative process that involves the reduction and bulk of written and sometimes pictorial information. Qualitative data are usually obtained from interview, observation, and focus group. The technique most qualitative researchers use to analyze their data is code coding. So, in general, codes are text or labels to give meaning to chunks of data. When coding a sentence or paragraph, the coder tries to capture briefly the main idea
conveyed by the sentence or paragraph. Qualitative coding can be descriptive or interpretive and is usually generated a priori or selective. Selective coding or emerges inductively or open coding from data. Codes and subcodes are often refined repeatedly, seek to make sense of their data through categorization, thematic analysis, and in some cases, advanced theory building. Next, there is a generalization in qualitative research. A generalization is usually thought of as a statement or claim of some sort that applies to more than one individual, group, object, or situation. So, when researchers make a statement based on a review of the literature that there is a negative correlation between age and the amount of interest in school, or older children are less interested in school than younger children. So she or he is making a generalization. And the value of generalization is that it allows us to have expectation and sometimes make predictions about the future. While the generalization may not be true in every case, for example, some older children may be more interested in school than some younger children. It explains more often than not what we expect to find. Next, there is internal validity in qualitative research. So far, qualitative studies do not try to explore relationship. Internal validity is, strictly speaking, not as important as in quantitative research. However, because qualitative research relies heavily on researchers in gathering and interpreting information, an important consideration, even in purely descriptive studies, is researchers' bias. Furthermore, qualitative studies often contain interpretation involving the relationship. And next, there is ethics and qualitative research. Ethical concerns affect qualitative research. However, due to its importance, there are some points that need to be repeated. First, unless otherwise agreed, the identity of all persons participating in qualitative studies must always be protected. Care must be taken to ensure that no information collected will embarrass or harm them if confidentiality cannot be maintained. Participants should be notified and given the opportunity to withdraw from the study. And then the second, participants must always be treated with respect. It is very important in qualitative studies to seek cooperation from all subjects in the research endeavor. Typically, subjects must be informed of the researcher's interests and must give their permission to proceed. Researchers must not lie to subject or record any conversation using hidden recording devices or other mechanical devices. And third, researchers must do their best to ensure that no physical or psychological harm will befall anyone who participates in the study. So the ethical point that needs to be emphasized here is this: while researchers are never sure how their finding will be received, they should always be sure to think carefully about the implication of their work, who may be influenced by the results of this work, and how. And next, qualitative and quantitative research. So in here, can qualitative and quantitative approaches be used together? Of course, in survey research, for example, it is common not only to prepare closed questionnaires, for example, multiple choice, for people to answer in writing, but also to conduct open personal interview with a random sample of respondents. Descriptive statistics sometimes used to provide qualitative details qualitative studies. Nevertheless, it must be recognized that carrying out sophisticated quantitative studies and in-depth qualitative investigations at the same time is difficult to carry out successfully. Indeed, it was very difficult. Often what is provided is a study that is neither qualitative nor quantitative. And then the second, which approach is better, qualitative or quantitative? As leading qualitative researchers say, therefore, the most widely held view is that there is no one best method. It all depends on what you are studying and what you want to discover. If you want to find out what the majority of Americans think about a particular issue, survey research that relies heavily on quantitative design in selecting your sample, designing and testing your instrument, and analyzing data is best. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.